Hello and welcome to Active Web Group's webinar on SEO Sabotage, Pitfalls to Avoid. My name is Maria Facina and I'll be your host today. In our webinar, we will be going through a number of points ranging from beginner SEO through advanced tips. Just a little bit about Active Web Group before we get started. Active Web Group has been in the field of internet marketing since 2003. We offer services in SEO, design, programming, email marketing, PPC, social media, conversion rate optimization, and branding. Now, before we get into that, though, let's go through some SEO basics that anyone considering or actively performing SEO should be aware of before we get to those common mistakes. SEO is continually evolving. While you're working with your SEO team, keep in mind that an approach may need to be changed or abandoned entirely due to the current best practices and quality guidelines of the search engine giants. It's not something that we like to happen, but it does occur every once in a while. Just think of an algorithm updates from the past, for example, such as Caffeine, Panda, or Penguin. Second point, SEO is not always pretty, but it can be if it's involved early enough in the process of building a site. Bring in a SEO agency when you're drafting your wireframes and page templates so that SEO elements are built into the design from the beginning instead of trying to band-aid them on after the look and feel of the site has already been decided. SEO touches so many different areas that have been siloed until now that it's best that everyone who's doing work on the project be brought in at the beginning instead of at the end stages. So, going on to our next point. Cooperation is key to success in any SEO campaign. All of the members of the team that will be working on the site in any way, from implementing code, providing images, to final copy, must agree to work together to get the site's conversion rate to the best that it can be. Timely optimization and turnarounds are crucial to hitting the target demographic at just the right moment. Now, the next point is to make sure that the SEO that you're working or that you have working on your site is fluent in the same language that the site is written in. If not, you may end up with some hilariously off-base typos that find their way into the title tags and meta descriptions. While they might be funny in retrospect, they will also steer search engine bots and users away from your website. The next point is that not to have two people working on SEO on the site at the same time. Many businesses start doing SEO on their own and then decide that they don't have the resources available to devote as much attention to it as it deserves. They then hire an SEO, but they then continue to make SEO changes to the site even while the hired SEO is working on it. Each SEO, let alone an agency, has their own style of implementation and follows their own method of execution. If you have multiple people working on a site without a lead directing actions, you'll end up with people overriding each other's work, which will land you with no improvement of traffic at best, but even with a decline of the site's original performance at worst. Okay, now that we've gone over some of the basics, let's get into those pitfalls that should be avoided for great SEO performance. The tasks are listed from beginner or entry-level SEO, so to speak, and escalate in difficulty to advanced. So if you're looking for the really juicy points, stick with us until the end of the presentation. 1. Develop a strategy. SEO does not work miracles. I cannot tell you how many people think that search engine optimization is a quick fix to an issue that they may have had in the past, such as online reputation management or conversion optimization, which are both actually separate services. As I stated earlier, SEO is continually evolving, and it has evolved into a field where being an authentic, genuine presence on the internet is the most important ranking signal. This means that the search engine giants will be able to tell how much thought you've put into your site and your approach to marketing it. So don't do anything to jeopardize your good name. Publish copy that is true to your products and business view. Having blogs posted and published at regular intervals, and that includes social media. And don't confuse your users during their time on the site. SEO is a commitment that takes a comparatively long time to show results next to a PPC campaign. In PPC, you can assign a budget and have results within a few days. Depending on the size of a site, you'll need to put in SEO work for anywhere between 3 months and 9 months to be able to see full results for the site. The strategy should also outline whether the site will be optimized from the category pages down or from the product pages up, or by the blog posts. You can best determine this by reviewing any analytics and tracking you have installed on your site. Review the landing page performance versus the overall page performance. If you don't have these trackers installed on your site, you can even find your best performing pages by reviewing your KPIs, such as the number of a blog post comments or the highest grossing product purchased. 2. Your industry lingo may not turn out to be the best keywords to optimize for. When you're beginning a keyword list and you're doing research, you want to focus on 2 stats, the search volume and the difficulty to rank for it, otherwise known as competition. The keyword tool determines the reported search volume by looking at the query's search volume over the past 12-month period and then averaging it out. So when you're starting your campaign, you'll want to start with volumes of at least 200 and higher, and also that have a low competition. Once you choose a keyword, you'll also want to look it up in Google and Bing to make sure you're coming up in the correct kind of SERPs. This is just a general admonition. You want to make sure that you're targeting the right demographic. So, for example, let's say that I'm writing an article for our blog and I want to address the question, how do I get into the SERPs? I've written my article and I've used this phrase as a long tail keyword throughout because, hey, who really doesn't ask that question right before they do SEO research, right? Let's check to make sure though. On your screen, you'll see a screenshot of the keyword research tool. So I go in and I type in the phrase, how do I get into the SERPs? And I find this information. You'll see that there is no actual average search volume, and it has no competition because there is no search volume. I'm at least getting like 1 or 2 keywords that are on target, which would be what is SERPs on line 4. But otherwise, I'm getting suggestions for, stakeholder pensions and pensions, which is not the field that I'm trying to attract. So because I'm totally off target, let's try a different phrase, and let's use how do I get my site listed on search engines? Okay, so still no average searches and no competition, but at least I'm targeting the right field this time. Now, looking at this, we see 3 keywords that actually match what we're trying to hit. Now, the one at the bottom that says how to get your website on search engines is the closest one to the field, of the original keyword. So I would want to use that, but the search volume is too low. That's at a 90. So instead, I'm going to try using search engine placement or search engine submission. I think that I want to use the search engine submission, but let's hold that off until we check it in the SERPs. Looking between the two, search engine submission shows that, we have results for website, webmaster search engine tools, search engine submission in the titles, but if we look at the URLs, they're not exactly what we're looking for. Also, for those who are unfamiliar, the SERP term actually stands for the term Search Engine Results Pages. Now, going back to the slide here, if we look at the search engine placement slide, we see that we're getting more authoritative URLs. So we're seeing Wikipedia, we're seeing search placement, search engine watch. So I'm actually going to choose that keyword as my topic. Now, going on to point 3. Make sure that your titles are the right length. Now, You want to make sure that your title tags are between 6 and 12 words long and that they include your keywords, especially at the beginning. This is because bots have to crawl so many different websites and pages that they can't possibly crawl every word and character on a site. So they only crawl a set number of characters per field per page. For a title tag, that's approximately 60 characters. On top of this, there are pixel restraints as well, which come into play with mobile and desktop displays. Just like a website, Google's search engine results can only display so much. To ensure that they are giving each entry enough importance, Google also only shows a set number of pixels, like I just said. So if your title is too long, it will get truncated. Let's use that search engine placement blog as an example. So my first title is a little long, but I'm going to use, if your site isn't ranking, read now about how to get better search engine placement. Kind of long, and that's actually 15 words, 3 over the cap of what we're supposed to be using. It also has the keyword at the end, so when Google displays it, it's actually going to display like this in the red text. We don't want that though. So let's change it and edit it down to how to get the best search engine placement for my site. This is better, but our keyword is still at the end. So we need to make it even more succinct. How to achieve search engine placement within 6 months. That's engaging. And it's going to drive even more traffic to that blog post. Moving on to point 4, don't use underscores in URLs. Often the uninitiated will use them because they think that the URL looks more like a sentence and it will be easier for users to find. It actually isn't. As you can see on the slide, we have an example URL, which is achieve search engine placement, and here we've used underscores. But when we end up putting the typical hyperlink styling on top of it, it looks like they're actually spaces instead of underscores. So that's not something that we want to use. Now, also, underscores are a component of programming languages. So unless you're writing a file that's labeled achieve or any other number of names, you're probably not going to name a page on your site like this. Thirdly, Google recognizes that this is part of programming languages, so it won't return any search results for this URL unless the user actually types in the underscores for it. They do that to secure their own servers and their own code as well. So really, the best way to add spaces or breaks in your URL is to use hyphens. They're tried and true word separators for front-end users, and they'll definitely remember to use it. 5, apply internal linking. Now, for those of you who have been in the business for a while, this may seem pretty familiar, and it may remind you of keyword stuffing. This is what we want to try and avoid, having a page that looks like Squirrel Buster's landing page here. For those who are a little bit newer, internal linking, also known as deep linking, is linking any keywords or phrases to pages in the site that are deeper in the hierarchy that users aren't likely to land on. The key is to remember to not make a web page look like this, essentially, on the site. It just has way too many iterations of their keyword term here, squirrel extermination. And the search engine giants will see that, and they will likely register it as spam. Typically, this type of internal linking is done on top performing landing pages so that it will funnel the users down to the pages that you want more attention. More people going to a page on the site, is a ranking signal, and it will help boost the rank in the SERPs. So the more the page is utilized by users, the higher regard the search engines will have for it. Now, a good way to actually use the hyperlinks is the way that the New York Times used it today in their review of Inside Out. Now, typical styling on a website shows the hyperlinks as underlined or as different colors, some way to make it stand out. In this article, they're actually hyperlinking out to Lewis Black, SNL, and The Office, and these are all keywords and phrases that will actually elicit a response from the audience, whether positive or negative. While you may not be able to do the exact same type of linking, you definitely want to try and have your links around keywords or phrases that users will continue to associate with the project in the future. And actually the project or the product, blog page, whatever you're linking down to. Point 6, responsive design. It's really simple. Use it. I can't stress this enough. If you've been following SEO recently, you've probably heard a lot on this topic. I know we here at AWG have been talking about the point for about 18 months now. It's been proven by Google that the majority of internet users perform searches on mobile devices more than they actually use their desktop. They've also admitted that search engine results returned on a mobile device are highly localized. And while they won't penalize your website for not being mobile friendly, they will give bonus points to sites that are. The old method of executing a mobile site was to do exactly that, create a separate website on a new subdomain with a new design, and usually use m.awg.com or mobile.awg.com to host it. Having two sites, as you may already know, can lead to a host of issues. One of the most common is that you then have to execute one task twice, which can, go into technical issues. Like, let's say that you're trying to add a new header on a page for product, and the header goes in fine on the standard site, but then it causes display issues on the mobile site. Also, you run into the occasional, oops, I forgot to update the mobile site. To avoid all of that, there is a newer method which uses either a cookie or a plugin based system, which can also lead to a nasty tendency of duplicate content issues with Google Search Console, formerly known as Webmaster Tools. Really, the easiest maintenance method is to just have the responsive in place from the beginning. That will allow you to take advantage of any local results that you may end up coming up for. Point 7 is don't duplicate content on your website. This is also, said in a different way as don't have multiple pages on a website trying to rank for the exact same keyword. Quite a few site owners think that copy on the website is something that can be adjusted after launch. And while we can make small tweaks to it, we really shouldn't be overhauling, large numbers of pages directly after launch. During production, they're more concerned with the site having the right look and feel. So, search engines have actually evolved quite a bit over the length of time that they've been around. Now, the page that you're looking at right now is just a typical placeholder text for any site design. It's called Lorem Ipsum, and this is just to give you an idea of the type of page that the search engine bots would see. Let's say if you had 12 products that were almost exactly the same except for the color, or perhaps except for one add-on that would be on the site. So the bots will recognize that this is the exact same thing. Now, going back a little bit farther again in our memories, it used to be that if you wanted to get any type of information out of Google or Bing when it was around, you would have to type in something like this first line of the slide, which is, let's say we wanted to ask that question, what's a jaguar's speed? And yes, we're talking about the cat, not the car. Um, so we'd have to actually type in Jaguar speed, omit, which is what that hyphen stands for, car or pandas, and omit site wikipedia.org. Now, due to advances like the Hummingbird algorithm, we're able to just type in what's a Jaguar speed, and the databases can return queries for it. They're able to find relevant information and post it for you directly. So because they already have that information, then it's going to already know that certain topics are related to one another. For example, AWG, we try to rank for the keyword internet marketing, let's say. However, internet marketing is also comprised of services for SEO, email marketing, PPC, social, you name it. So the bots are going to expect to see those related topics on our site. If we had 15 pages on our site just targeting internet marketing, it may be read as spam. One of the simplest ways to troubleshoot for this duplicate content is to do something called content spinning, where you take the ideal perfect product description or copy and then you go through and change it up a bit. Now this isn't something that you should do on, let's say 900 pages out of 1,000 on your website. But if you have, again, those 12 products that are very similar except for that one piece, this might work well for you. For example, this paragraph is an old blog post of mine. It reads, much like the mobile phones that have soared into our lives, Hummingbird has made searching Google on the go more intuitive. Let's face it, up until recently, the only people who could find anything of use on Google were the guys in the basement who knew the clipped alien language of asterisks, colons, and dashes that Google understood. And that can be spun into Hummingbird has made searching Google on the go more intuitive, much like the mobile devices we now use. Let's face it, until now, the only people who could find results of use on Google were the tech guys in the basement who knew regex. So essentially paraphrase, summarize, completely rewrite it, but plan from the beginning to give each service, product, and info page individualized attention. Moving on to point 8, set up site tracking. And when I say set up site tracking, I mean fully set it up. Once you install tracking on your site, you have the code on there, it doesn't mean that the interface is set up completely. Most site owners have one form of tracking on their site or another, whether it's Google Analytics, Omniture, or another flavor as PWIX. But we still need to get it to that end stage where we're going to be getting the valuable data for your KPIs or your key performance indicators. Since we use since we use Google Analytics here at Active Web Group, I'm going to use an account setup on there as an example. So in Google Analytics, you can see that there are actually 3 sections here. There's the account side all the way at the left-hand side of your screen, which is the top level of your account. The property, which is your URL, and you can have multiple properties under one account. And then you have the views. The views are where you're going to be setting up those KPIs. So you want to make sure you have 3 views set up. You have the first, which is the unfiltered view. This view will contain all of the data for the history of your account, sort of like a backup in case anything goes wrong with the other views we're going to set up. The second view that's created is the test view. This is where you can set up and run new filters, segments, and goals. It won't affect your backup data. And once you prove that it works, you can then add it to the third view you're going to create, which is the master view. Now, the master view, you're going to apply all vetted segments, filters, and goals. So one of the things that you should have set up on your master view, and it's really one of the most important things, is setting up a filter to exclude the IP address for any of your employees that are either internal or remote. This is so that when you start working on your site, you don't inflate your site metrics. If you inflate the metrics, then you'll be looking at a ballooned number and you won't really know exactly, who's hitting your site that is looking for your product, for your target audience. Now, you can find it if you do a lot of digging, but it's better to just have it automatically set up. So all you have to do is log into analytics, take a look at your master view, and get that done. The second thing you'll need to do is you'll need to set up some segments. Segments are for your KPIs specifically. So let's just say, for example, we're going to use a session of 3 minutes or more as our indicator, and that's going to show us any users who are definitely interested in a project, and it's going to qualify them. So in Google Analytics, we're going to go in to the segment here. You're going to see the all sessions here at the top. When you click on the add segment field, there's going to be a drop down that asks if you want to add a new segment. To set up a session duration segment, just click on behavior and put in the amount of time you want it to be for. Keep in mind that these session durations are counted in seconds. So for 3 minutes here, I put in 180 seconds. Now, just because you're setting up a segment for your KPI doesn't mean that you should ignore everybody else on your site. Because as you can see here, for our KPI, we're seeing only 5.29% of users are staying for 3 minutes or more. So that means that we either need to work on it, or maybe we need to look at the other people who are spending maybe 1 minute or 2 minutes on our site. To do that, you then create a second segment, rename it to 3 minutes or less, and then just change the symbol out to a less than symbol for the same amount of time. As you can see here, you can do this across demographics. So if you want to target a location, a type of technology such as mobile phones or desktop computers, traffic sources, any complex information you may need to find is available there. Now, moving on to the next point, point 9, we want to make sure that all of the goal funnels that we want to set up in Google Analytics are actually on one domain, our domain, preferably. Sometimes site owners find a really cool tool that they want their users to see, or they want to send traffic to an affiliate, but then they want their users to go back to their site. Not only is this extremely difficult to analyze, even with campaign tracking, it's nigh impossible to actually match up sessions specifically in Google Analytics. Now, if you do have a party on the other end that is willing and able to implement the tracking script for you, and you know that person, you can set it up, but it involves a lot of workarounds. This is because a UA code is assigned to one website and only one website. Analytics doesn't allow for tracking multiple URLs in a property just for privacy concerns. This is also pertinent for those who use iframes. Again, try to stay away from them. Users may get confused, even if it's just from looking at the URL and seeing that it's staying the exact same URL through a multi-step funnel. And for the final point, robots application. Now, for those of you who are in SEO and you've actually worked with this before, you know about the robots.txt file. Now, this is a file on a website that allows and disallows bots and crawlers to access your site. A typical robots file looks like this. It's just a plain old text file that has the overall user agent as star, which means every user agent, and it's going to disallow your admin and any system files to your site. Now, we do this when we have a referrer or a bot that hits the site so many times that it's actually bringing down the server. So we can also exclude our competition from crawling our site via the robots text. Now, again, those of you who have done this before, you're probably pretty familiar with this file, but there is a second way to implement these actions. There is the robots text, or there is the robots meta tag that you actually insert into a into a header of a page. Now, while this is a line of code that's a very useful tool, it's also sort of like looking for a needle in a haystack later on. What it allows you to do is it allows you to either allow or block indexing. It also allows you to define whether you want those bots to follow or not follow any links on the page. So you can effectively skip over any pages on your site that you think may not be relevant for search engines. Now, it's very useful, but it can go wrong very easily. Like I said, needle in a haystack. If you apply this to, let's just say, a category page, and it's one of your lesser known category pages, and you launch your site, then 3 months later you go back and you used to have rankings for that page before you relaunched your new design. You look at it and then you realize that you forgot to change the no index, no follow to index follow on that line. I think it's the 5th line down there. It's definitely something that's very detail oriented. I really strongly recommend using the robots text file just because it's universal. I've seen more than one site go live, as a site design, and then they're not seeing the SERPs come back for their site, or they may see them drop off, and it's because they just forgot to remove this robots meta tag off of the home page of the site. Now, that concludes our presentation for the points, and we're going to open up the floor to questions and answers. If you could please type in any questions that you may have into the chat, that would be the best way for us to see them. So I do have one question, and the question is, how can I tell if my strategy is working correctly before the 6-month mark? Okay, so the ideal SEO strategy will show that you will be seeing a larger amount of users and a larger amount of sessions coming in from organic sources in your analytics. To actually get down to the section, we're going to go to acquisition, all traffic, and you're going to look at source medium. Now, from here, we're going to apply something called a primary dimension, because right now we're seeing a whole lot of information here. This is all of the referral traffic that's coming to the site. So instead of looking at the source medium, we're going to look at medium. And we're also going to see now none here. And we're going to see referrals, so that's the only type of traffic that this site has had. You're ideally going to want to see organic listed as one of these options. And then we're going to expand the time range. So let's just say, for discussion's sake, that the site launched on January 18th of 2015. We're going to apply. And what you want to see is a trend up. So far, our test site has been doing pretty well. So on to the next question. From Ed Phillips. I rushed my site and I know I have duplicate content. How do I know what to change and what to leave alone? Very good question, Ed. What you're going to do is you're actually going to compare your keyword rankings to your analytics. Ed, do you have analytics installed or some sort of site tracking? Okay. I'm not seeing an answer, but I'm going to say that yes, you are. So what you would do is you would take keywords and you would look at the ranks for them and you would apply those rankings to the pages in your analytics, and I'll show you where to find that. Going to go to behavior, site content, landing pages. And you're going to combine those to what's coming up here. So in your keyword tracking, ideally you will be able to see which URL you're ranking for, and you're just going to match them up. If you're, let's say you're ranking for screen share, then you look at that page and see the one that's ranking, and you're going to leave that one alone. From there, you're going to use some sort of content developer, or if you're going to rewrite the pages, but you would edit the rest of the pages on the site except for that one. Okay, great. Yes, Ed, you do have Google Analytics. That's what I hope to see. Okay, great. So are there any other questions before we end this webinar? Okay, it looks like we're set. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. My email address is maria@activewebgroup.com. If you want to reach Active Web Group in general, you can email info@activewebgroup.com. And we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar in the series. Have a great day.